Updates on 2019 Restoration and Enhancement Fund projects. So for that, we'll welcome Mr. Angus Mackay from the Pacific Salmon Commission Secretariat and also our Restoration and Enhancement Fund Administrator. So welcome back, Mr. Mackay.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So you have introduced the review of the 2019 active projects that we have on the go. This is, for me, this is one of the more interesting presentations that I have to make because we're going to quickly skip through the active projects that the panel approved for 2019 and check in with them and how they've been doing and how's the year been treating them and how's the project been going. And I know there's actually quite a few of you in the room who are the project leaders on some of these, and so that's good to have you with us and good to kind of go through your projects with you in the room and the panel here. I'm going to take this right off the top. Panel members, you've had this document in your packages for some time now, I think. It's the status report with the list of 24 projects that were approved for 2019. And I have the list here up on the screen. So the first one to mention then is is in the conservation category. We're going to go through the conservation projects first, and the first one is this genetic stock identification at pilot station of Chinook salmon. So there's at the sonar station at pilot station there is an associated test fishery. They sample the fish there. They take DNA samples. They go to the Gene Conservation Lab in Anchorage, and the results come back in real time for the managers to assist the managers with their in-season management. There's a whole lot of logistics, a whole lot of balls in the air for this project, and the modest genius who makes this happen every year is the incomparable Fred West. Fred, if you could raise your hand if you have questions about this one. Fred's the guy to go to. On the second project. Second project on the list is another genetics project. This is baseline improvement. The baseline is already apparently pretty good, but it could always get better. This was a one-year project that we funded with ADF&G to make some tweaks and improvements to the baseline. The third project on the list is a U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service project. This was the single most expensive project that we funded in 2019. This cost $130,000 US. This was basically to try and do what Fred was doing with Chinook with chum salmon, and again a one-year effort, and we'll be looking for the results of this one, the final results for this one towards the end of June. Moving on to the Klondike River sonar project. So this is a project with Tronde Kwäch'än. Natasha Ayoub is the project leader on that one. Natasha, are you here? Yeah, I don't see her, but this is the first year of a feasibility study. So there has been a sonar site on the Klondike before. They're thinking of reestablishing it. So they're checking out whether that was the most suitable site or not, or whether there are better places for that sonar. So year one of a feasibility study. The next one is the Big Salmon River sonar project. This one is led by Brian Mercer. This is a very long-running project for the panel, 15 years. We've been funding this one, so it's a long-time series of data, and Brian has been running a pretty tight ship there for some time. That information goes back to stock assessment at the DFO office here in Whitehorse. The next one I have, this is the Pelly River Chinook sonar project. This one is the fourth year of this project. So a new sonar installation 4 years ago. They're still working away on this one. I think the plan is to try and cover one complete Chinook life cycle. This is, incidentally, the second most expensive project that we funded in 2019, 171,000 Canadian. Is there anybody in the room who was associated with that one? Selkirk First Nation guys? Not seeing any hands. But that one will be ready towards the end of the fiscal year. We'll be getting the final report. There are a number of final reports on that one from previous years already on the website. The Upper Teslin River watershed Chinook radio telemetry. So the fisheries crew from Teslin Tlingit Council have been radio tagging Chinook and then tracking where they go in the watershed, trying to verify verify existing spawning sites or find new ones. This project is in the second year of 2, so they will have 2 years worth of data on this one. Gillian Rourke. Gillian, did I see you in here? Yeah, not yet, but Gillian has a number of projects that we're going to touch on. That was the first of hers. The next one on the list, be very familiar to most of the panel members. This is the Mitchie Creek project with Kwäch'än, our hosts today. Brandy Mays. Brandy, I did see Nick DeGraff. Nick, you're here. Yeah, he's the long-running technical advisor on this project. One of the longest projects that we have funded. And to the last of the conservation projects. This is the temperature monitoring on the Yukon River Chinook salmon spawning and migration habitats in Canada. This is the cheapest project that we fund, only $6,000. And the other thing I can tell you is that this project is the one that consistently scores in the top rank with the Joint Technical Committee when they do their reviews. So this project has now been running for 7 years, building up a valuable database of information, and the project leader behind that one is our friend Al von Finster here at the front table. Moving on to the restoration projects. The Kwäch'än Council's Fox Creek Salmon Restoration Project. This has been it's been a bit of a poster child for the panel. It started off years ago as a stewardship and capacity building project, and over the years has matured into the full-blown kind of restoration project that we're proud to continue to support now. It's in kind of phase 2 of its life cycle, looking at second cycle of Chinook coming through Fox Creek. Many of you may have known Deb Fulmer, who was the project leader on that one with Tan for the last couple of years. Deb's moved on, and her place has been taken by Christina Beckman. Christina is in the room. Christina, wave your hand. Are you waving your hand, or did you? Oh, there you are. Yeah, right. There's Christina, right in the middle. Okay. So good luck, Christina, on continuing the good work on that project. The next one is Deadman Creek. Many of you are familiar with this one, a restoration project with Teslin Tlingit Council, Gillian Rourke, in collaboration with local environmental consulting company EDI and their leading fish technician Ben Schoenville. So we had the opportunity to go out and visit that project with some of the folks from the Education Exchange last April. Got in the creek, saw the eggs and the young fish. So that project is now, where are we? Yeah, I think perhaps we're in the third or fourth year of that project. Moving on in restoration, the Tay River Chinook salmon access investigation. So that aerial photograph there is the pinch point on the Tay River that is creating a velocity barrier that Chinook can't make it over. So Brian Mercer with Metla Environmental is leading an investigation into what might be described as a range extension project, or what is the potential for Chinook habitat above that restriction there. So Brian is going to be making a presentation to you all, and so I'll leave it to him to provide you with all the interesting details of that one. The next project is back on the Klondike with Kwäch'än. You can see a couple of guys here checking for juveniles. They've got a G-trap there, checking for juvenile presence. They're looking to do something that is rather similar to what they're doing on the Deadman with in-stream incubation, and they're looking for suitable sites to initiate this project. This investigation has been going on for a number of years. I think they're in year 3 of 4, and hoping to wrap up a fourth and final year and next year when they will take stock and see where to go next with that project. And then the last of our restoration projects is up on the Fishing Branch River with Kwäch'än. This is the first year of a proposed 2-year, again, another in-stream egg incubation project. EDI are involved with this one as well. The photograph here shows a young man from Kwäch'än. This guy is Caleb Charlie, and he was attached to the investigators who are out in the field working on this project within the last few months. We're going to move now from restoration onto the stewardship projects. This is the Kwäch'än project, the first fish youth culture camp, which happens at Moosehide up near Dawson. We have been sponsoring this one for many years, and ideal opportunity for youth and elders and other educators to get together, share their knowledge, and they spend about a week together. Experts from DFO attend in addition. Number 16 here is Salmon in the Classroom. This is where in classrooms across the Yukon Territory, in Whitehorse here, but out in the rural areas as well, in classrooms, they're setting up aquariums with a few eggs. The children can watch the eggs develop, and then in the fullness of time gather up the fry and release them in their local streams. So a great way of engaging the youngsters in the life cycles of salmon. This is year 8 that we've been sponsoring these aquariums in the schoolrooms. Number 17 is one of the first of our 2019 projects that has already been completed. So this is very much a summer project. This happens at the Whitehorse Rapids Fishway. These students, kids really are hired every year with the help of the Yukon Fish and Game Association, and they act as tour guides and interpreters for visitors from all over the world who come and stop and look at the displays at the Fishway. A great photograph of a bunch of enthusiastic kids every year, one of them is kind of nominated as the leader or the author of their final report, and those final reports are on our website. And I tell you, it's kind of heartwarming. Some of the best, some of the funniest reports that we get are the adventures of this gang of 6 or 8 kids in the summer, and the unlikely things that happened to them, and the beaver that got stuck in the fishway, and the lady that passed out at the viewing screen, and what they did. An interesting project, and we've been funding that for quite a number of years now. The next one is the Teslin Tlingit Salmon Steward. So this is an endeavour where the Fisheries and Wildlife staff at Teslin Tlingit Council will take on a young person and attach them to their department for the season, kind of mentor them, give them a feel of what it's like to go to work, wearing waders every day and getting out in the creek and getting your hands cold and dirty, and a great way of introducing somebody to what that kind of work entails and what they might expect if they intend to make a career in fisheries. And the next one is the Southern Lakes community-based salmon planning project. So this is year 1 of a proposed 2-year endeavor being led by our own Dennis Zimmerman here, Dennis at the front table. And so this is an attempt to bring a number of interested parties together under Dennis's tutelage to undertake some community planning for restoration and enhancement projects in the local watersheds down in the Southern Lakes area. So for an update on that, please chase Dennis down. And then we're moving into the last couple of projects here, the communications projects. Here's the second of our 2019 projects that has now been completed. This is the in many ways, this is becoming kind of the signature program of the R&E Fund. This is our annual educational exchange, and in 2019 we had a small party of folks from Alaska, from lower down in the river. One of whom I see is sitting here wearing a very fine pair of suspenders. I might add. Robert is here. He's features in this photograph. He's the guy in the blue T-shirt there, and this was a photograph taken when the group were taken down to meet with Teslin Tlingit Fisheries and Wildlife staff and elders. You can see it was a lovely day for a field trip. The next one on our list is the YRP pre-season preparation meeting. So this has been approved for 2020. It's going to happen in pre-season 2020. So the panel approved this one to go ahead yesterday. This will be the 10th year that we have been supporting this project. And number 22 here, enhanced education and outreach. Emily Payne. Emily, are you here? I don't see you, but this is kind of a value-added project to the aquariums in the classroom. So this is providing additional materials and curriculum for teachers to take the aquariums in the classroom to the next level and introduce children in a bit more detail to the life cycle of salmon and the perils that they face. And number 23 is the Salmon No Borders communication campaign. So this is a project that is being sponsored and run by the communications subcommittee of the panel. So the communications committee have hired a science communication specialist who has been helping them develop various media and materials to help describe the work of the panel and the resources that the panel has responsibility for. And so a report was received yesterday from the consultant on that, and there'll be a number of interesting products coming out at the end of this project. And then lastly, an interesting project here, Yukon River Panel R&E Fund Achievements and Successes from 1997 to 2017. This is a big scale project where a consultant has taken on the task of reviewing all the final reports that have ever been produced from projects that have been sponsored by the R&E Fund right from the beginning, and bringing that up to date, and then investigating those reports and categorizing them and grouping them and working some statistics on them, so that the panel can get a feel of where their money has been spent, who have they been sponsoring over the years, what are the main types of projects that have been sponsored, and what have been some of the keynote successes that the panel has achieved over time. Again, the panel received an in-person presentation from the researcher yesterday. I think that was well received, and there's a lot of interest in the outcome of this project. So stay posted. The final report for this project will end up on the Yukon River Panel's website in due course. So that's the run through of the 2019 projects, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Mackay. Questions from panel members on any of the 2019 projects? Panel member Harvey Jessup, go ahead.
Yeah, Angus, I wonder if you can provide some clarity on the term final report. I'm wondering if it's because a project is finished, or if it's the report that's due annually. I'm just a bit confused on the term final report.
Okay, so the final report is the project that is produced at the end of the contract period that the Pacific Salmon Commission enters into with each of the selected project leaders on an annual basis, and so we write those contracts for a year at a time, and so the final report is amounts to an annual report. It's really the same thing, but there are projects out there that might run for 2 or 3 years as they gather data. We'll be expecting what we would call a final report each year, and then at the end of that time, there is very often a kind of a wrap-up report which summarizes all of their findings.
Okay, thanks. The word final has some kind of a final connotation to it. I just wonder if there might be something, and perhaps it's because if they are asking for a second, third, fourth, 15th year, that has yet to be decided, which might suggest that final is final. But anyway, just if someone outside this process was reading the information, perhaps the word final might be a bit confusing. That the project is wrapped up as opposed to the year is wrapped up.
I understand your point.
We have a question from panel member Rhonda Pick. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. I really enjoy hearing the reports and seeing all the pictures in this report. A lot of my favorite projects that we've funded have been about the youth and the Salmon in the Schools project, and those are so invaluable to getting out, I guess, the message that we want to send out. And I really enjoy the pictures involved and all the names involved in that. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Panel member Dennis Zimmerman, go ahead.
Thank you, Angus, and thank you, Ron. I actually wanted to focus on that as well. If you could go to the Tessentlingit Salmon Steward photo, please, and writing. You know, we know that you know, salmon abundance and the number of salmon. We don't have a lot of great news necessarily, and I think we have to celebrate our successes. And the number of projects that have youth in them, I think, is really great. It also speaks to the real importance of the stewardship sort of component of the R&E fund and how important. And I kind of want to highlight this photo because having had a look at it, and I will admit my bias. I'm always willing to admit my bias. When I look at this photo, I see a technically it's salmon steward, a youth there with, you know, doing some in-stream incubation. There's 2 scientists, and there's my son on the left. So it just really illustrates the importance of having First Nations, the public working together, stewardship, Western science, traditional knowledge. I think that really says a lot. So thank you for sharing that. I didn't know it was going to be there, and I always thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Mr. Mackay, and very much appreciate the report on 2019 projects funded to date. And so we'll transition into our next presentation, which is the 2020 Yukon River Restoration and Enhancement Fund call for project proposals. Mr. Mackay, could you give us a summary on the process to date and what we've received and our next steps with respect to the 2020 funding administration process?
Thank you very much. So the call for proposals for 2020, this document that I have on the screen is the call. This is it. It's a 2-page document, and it comprises a number of elements. The most important element, to my thinking, is the part that I've just circled up here. This is the part that references the near-term priorities. So this part sets out what the priorities for the coming year are for R&E funding in the opinion of the panel. These are the kind of projects that they're going to be particularly interested in. So you won't be able to read that from where you're sitting, so let's have a bit of a closer look. It says that the near-term priorities that were confirmed at the panel's last meeting in April, which was held here, they confirmed 4 near-term priorities to be included in the call for proposals, and they set out their reasons for selecting near-term priorities to assist them with the work of the R&E fund. And they also add this interesting paragraph at the end saying that although these are their near-term priorities, they're not closing the door to any other good ideas that might be out there. So it's not 4 near-term proposals and near-term priorities and nothing else. If you've got a good idea, the door is still open for you to provide a proposal. So looking back at the call for proposals document, the part I've circled right there, those are the 4 near-term priorities that were set out in the call document. So let's have a bit of a closer look at them. 3 of those have to do with restoration. So restoration has been a priority for the panel for the last, I think, perhaps at least 5 years anyway. And they have laid out 3 of their 4 priorities for 2020 are still in this category, and they follow a kind of a stepwise progression in restoration type projects. So the first one involves identifying a stock or limits to production. The second one involves assessing the feasibility of doing something about that depleted stock or that limit to production. And the third one is actually doing something about it and restoring the depleted stock. So they're looking for proposals that address any of those 3 types of activities. In addition, they had a 4th one in the stewardship category, so proposals that involve and educate users and non-users in communities to increase their desire to maintain and protect salmon stocks and habitats. And then they have added a rider, which they typically add to their calls for proposals, saying that any of these proposals, they really encourage people to reach out and form partnerships and particularly to reach out with local people and local First Nations in coming up with a leadership team to implement their project. The call for proposals is issued on the Yukon River Panel's website. Here's just a picture of the homepage of the Yukon River Panel's website. And you can see there's a number of buttons along the bottom here, these blue buttons. There's a couple of places that you could access the call for proposals from the homepage. You could go straight to the R&E Fund Call for Proposals button. That would be fairly intuitive. Or you could go to the News and Announcements button and click on that one. Either way, you will find your way to the call for proposals by clicking on one of those. Let's click on News and Announcements, and that takes you to this page where the call for proposals is announced. You'll see that the date of the issuance of the call for proposals was May 10th. So this was a matter of weeks after the panel met in April and decided on the terms of their call, and it's timed kind of very early in the year, so that you have most of May, June, July, August, September. You have 5 months to review the materials that are in the call for proposals and to get your application in. That's really a generous amount of time for people to be considering putting in an application. And then there's a large button down at the bottom here that says, click on this button if you want to find out where all the details are and all the paperwork that you'll need. So let's click on that button, and this is the page that it takes you to. And so you can download all of this information here, the call for proposals, what the priorities plan is, where their near-term priorities came from, the forms that you need. There's various guidance documents that technical people associated with the panel have developed over the years to help you get your head around what your proposal is going to be. And critically, the scoring criteria are in there too, so that you know how your project is going to be scored by the technical reviewers. In addition, this year we issued a reminder much closer to the deadline date. So within a couple of weeks, September 19th I see it's dated. So the deadline is October 1st. So we sent out a reminder here saying, come on, the deadline is drawing close. If you're going to put a proposal in, you better get your skates on. Here's the spreadsheet list that we develop at the Salmon Commission and share with the panel members, and it just lists all the proposals that we get in any given year, and we typically group them by activity area. So these are the projects that are in the conservation category. These are the restoration category, enhancement, stewardship, communications, and viable fisheries. You can see how well the call for proposals worked, because although they were focusing on near-term priorities that had to do with restoration and stewardship, we did still get proposals that came in all categories that the panel is interested in. So that's healthy. And the other thing I'd like to draw your attention to is that the projects that are highlighted in blue are Canadian-based projects, and the ones that are in orange are US-based projects. So that list of proposals was drawn up, and to summarize the spreadsheet that you weren't able to read from where you're sitting in the room, I can tell you that these are the results. We got 12 conservation projects requesting just over $600,000 US, 9 in the restoration category, 1 enhancement, 6 stewardship, 6 communications, and 1 viable fisheries. So we received 35 proposals, and the total amount of money that they request, if you add it all together, is 1.7 million US. How does that compare to recent results? Well, here I've laid out what we've received in the last 5 or 6 years or so. So for 2020, as I say, 35 proposals, 1.7. You know, if I average the number of proposals that we have received, we're probably you know, three proposals down on the average for an average year. And dollar amounts, you can see that it has fluctuated from highs of, you know, 2.3 million to the 1.7 that we see today. The average of that is about 1.9 million in requests, and so we're a couple of 100,000 down on what we would normally see. But if you'll recall my earlier presentation on the financial status of the fund, we anticipate being able to spend 1.4. Here's a picture of me and Victor with all the proposals. Look at them all. That's our boardroom table in the Pacific Salmon Commission down in Vancouver. A project proposal, like one of those ones you saw lying on the boardroom table there, is subject to a number of different things happen to a proposal on its journey from your desk to the panel's desk and their decision-making process. So here's the project proposal, and it's responding to panel interests. So the panel get the first kick at the can. They develop the call for proposals. They develop the annual near-term priorities, and they develop those from a tool that they developed a couple of years ago, which is the Yukon River Panel Priorities Plan, which lists all of their priorities, and they select a subset of those each year to be their annual near-term priorities. That document is available with all the other materials that you need if you're going to be putting in an application. And all of this happens under the umbrella of the Yukon River Salmon Agreement, which lays out the terms of the R&E Fund. Excuse me. So having got you to respond to their call for proposals and hopefully address some of their near-term priorities, the next thing that happens to a project proposal is that it goes under the microscope with the Joint Technical Committee for their technical review. So the Joint Technical Committee, they regard their work as just being a tool in the toolbox of things that happens to a particular project. They look at each project proposal very much from a technical point of view, from a scientific point of view, and they bend their expertise to the writing that you've provided with them, and to see whether that project stands a good chance of success or not. So their review is based on your proposal, your budget forms they look at. They consider any letters of support that you might provide, or other supporting documents. Their process is an interesting one. The first step of their review is to sit down separately in separate national sections and undertake their own reviews. So the U.S. technical guys will sit down and undertake their review. The Canadians will do theirs separately, and they'll score them. And they'll score them based on the scoring criteria, which are defined in the 2020 call for proposals. So here are the scoring criteria, and this is another document that is part of that package of documents that I showed you on our website. This is the document that the technical folks will use as a template to score your proposal. So you know what kind of questions they're going to be asking themselves when they read your proposal. And so they'll be looking for the relevance and significance of your proposal. Is it relevant to the work of the panel? How significant a piece of work might this be? What about the technical merit? You know, how technically robust is your project, and your capacity? And what's the bench strength of the guys that you'll be bringing to bear to work on your project? And what benefits and how cost effective is this project? And each of those questions that they'll be asking themselves is assigned a score. So it really behooves you, when you're going to put in a proposal, to study this document pretty carefully and try and make sure that you're going to maximize the score that the JTC are going to assign to your proposal. Okay, so back to the bilateral review process. Having done it in separate national sections, they will get together and compare notes. And well, what did you score this one? Well, I scored it this. Or what did you score it as? And then they will discuss, what things that they saw or the other one missed, and they will come up then eventually at the end of the day with a bilateral product, a consensus JTC product. That's really important. That's what comes out at the end of the funnel at the end of the day. And so the JTC will then present the results of their joint deliberations to the panel, and the panel will be able to take that technical information into consideration as just one of the tools that they will apply to each of the proposals that comes in. And as it turns out that the JTC, after their review, did feel that there were a couple of questions hanging out there of a technical nature that they would like to feed back to certain proponents that will help the JTC get a firm grip on what's being proposed. And so there were three of these. They applied to three specific proposals that came in for 2020. Deadman Creek was one. Assessing the fate of returning upper Yukon River Chinook salmon was a third, and the Morley River stock restoration planning project was a third. So what's going to happen with those is that following this meeting, I'll be reaching out to the proponents concerned. I'll be saying that these questions were developed by the JTC. They were endorsed by the panel. The panel thinks these are good questions to ask. Could you please do what you can to respond to these questions before the panel have to meet again in April and make their final decisions? And so between the middle of December and sometime in February, I will be liaising with those proponents to settle up those questions. I should tell you that the panel also has the opportunity to ask questions themselves beyond the questions that the JTC have asked. And as it turned out this year, the panel and the separate sections had no additional questions to ask of proponents. So we're going ahead with those three JTC recommended questions. So there we've done the JTC Technical Review. The next tool in the toolbox is public comments. So the panel wants to be very transparent in all their business, and that includes the call for proposals and the proposals that are under consideration for funding in any given year. And so they go to some length to solicit input from members of the general public, and I'll show you how we do that. We issue back on the Yukon River Panel's website. We issue on the news and announcements page. We issue a call for public comments on the Restoration Enhancement Fund 2020 applications, and there's a button there to hit that invites you to investigate further if you feel that you do have a question or you might be interested in reviewing what's on the table for the coming year. So let's imagine that we press that button, and here is the document that is the call for public comment. And again, you might not be able to read this, but let's investigate some of the key parts of this document together. You can see that it's titled "The Call for Public Comments." It's dated, so it's dated the 7th of November, and the significance of that is that it shows the length of time that you have available to provide your public comments, because the deadline is March 31st. Then it encourages you to go to the website to investigate point number 2 there, which is to review the project proposals for 2020. Okay, you don't have to review the whole proposal. Victor and I go through all of those proposals. We summarize in just one paragraph what each of those projects is proposing to do, and we make that document available on the website right there. So you can go and read these brief summaries and see if you have a question on those projects. and there's the end date. So you have most of November, December, January, February, March. You have 5 months, if you're a member of the public, to go in there, take a look, and provide your public comment. And that public comment comes to the panel table and is considered. It's given as much veracity as the other tools that are brought to bear, including the technical review of the JTC. So it's not an insignificant part of the process by any means. So the public comments, the JTC technical review, panel interests, and questions that the panel might have. I should add that the communications committee down here, who provide guidance to you if you're thinking of a communications type proposal, the communications committee will also review the communications proposals that come in and provide their advice to the panel. Why do they do that? Well, because communications projects are not technical projects in their nature. They're not the kind of projects that the JTC has the expertise to review, and so that task falls to the communications committee, and they will provide their advice to the panel as just another piece of the puzzle, as the panel whittle their way down through the proposals and come up with their final list. And that, Mr. Chairman, is that.
Thank you, Mr. Mackay, and I am conscious of the time, but I'll ask panel members any questions on the 2020 call for proposals or resulting submissions to date. Panel member Carl Sidney, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair, and thank you, Angus. In regards to the call for proposals, after what we went through yesterday, I would emphasize the deadline, or highlight the deadline. And the other comment I have in regards to the JTC work, when they're reviewing the projects on the scoring criteria, I was just wondering if they probably did already, but I'm just curious as to whether they have a place there for ongoing projects, if that scored anything. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sidney. So I can respond quickly to the latter question. So all projects submitted to the Yukon River Panel Restoration and Enhancement Fund are evaluated by the Joint Technical Committee. So they are vetted through the same process. And thank you for the reminder with respect to the former item. What panel member Mr. Sidney is referring to is that every year, in order to provide fairness to all project proponents, the Yukon River Panel sets a deadline for project submissions, through which project submissions must be received by a certain date in order for the panel to consider those requests for funding in the future year. So this is a strong reminder. I do appreciate Angus Mackay's efforts in this regard, where the call for proposals does specify that there is a firm deadline with regards to proposal submissions. We will be clarifying that in the 2020 call for proposals, that proposals submitted after that date will not be considered by the panel for the coming year. And that's just a reminder to project proponents with respect to procedural fairness. We will be introducing another element in the call for proposals for 2021, which is that project proponents who have ongoing or projects from prior years for which they have not yet submitted final reports, and those final reports are beyond the required deadline in the funding contribution agreements, further proposals won't be considered from those proponents until all final reporting is submitted. So we will be clarifying those 2 points in the 2021 call for proposals that will be issued next spring. So thank you, Mr. Sidney. Any further questions from panel members? Not seeing any, so respecting the time, we're at 20 to 12. We'll move agenda item 8 to immediately after lunch, which is simply a reminder with respect to the Yukon River Panel's 2019 Management recommendations to the parties, we'll start with that at 1:15, but we'll move into public testimony. And I would ask individuals or representatives who would like to provide public testimony, please come to the front of the room to provide your testimony. The first submission will be from Mr. Joseph O'Brien, and Mr. O'Brien is from Little Salmon Carmacks Renewable Resource Council. So you would like to go second? Okay. So we will ask, and I apologize, there's no name, but I believe it's an organization, the First Peoples of the Yukon River, would like to provide public testimony. So I'm not sure. Oh, there we go. Great. Thank you. So if you could join us at the front of the room, please. Thank you very much.
Poso Kwäch'än Stephanie Quinn-Davidson Nuisawank Noiai Apayunyo Tayo Kisk. Hello, my name is Stephanie Quinn-Davidson. I am not a first person of the Yukon River, but I am a Mohican Brotherton Indian from Wisconsin originally, a Menominee Indian from Wisconsin. I'm the director of the Yukon River Intertribal Fish Commission. We represent 33 federally recognized tribes along the Yukon River. And prior to your panel meeting, we came together with several representatives from First Nations here in Yukon Territory to have what we called a First Peoples Summit. And so these are individuals who all participated in that summit starting Friday evening, all day Saturday, and then we did some field trips yesterday. We have some statements that we want to make as a group. We had a very powerful meeting and a very historic meeting, I think. And I want to say that the individuals here, there are some who are representing their First Nation, and there are some who are not, designated to speak on behalf of their tribe or First Nation, but are here as themselves and from where they live on this river. And I think it's still powerful that we have individuals from the mouth of the river at Alukkanuk all the way up to the headwaters here in Kwanlin-Dun territory and in Teslin-Tlingit as well. And the fact that we are all together coming to you with the same message. And I'll turn it over to Emmie.
Good morning, panel members. Emmie Fairclough. I'm the member of the Teslin-Tlingit Council. I belong to the Kwäch'än clan, and I'm the daughter of the late Pauline Sidney. I stand before you. I'm going to read a statement that we constructed on Saturday, and I'm really hoping that the panel members are listening with your ears wide open, because this is a really strong statement that we are making to you, and we are begging and pleading you to listen to us. So as the traditional stewards of our lands and waters and the first people of the Yukon River, we respectfully request that the Yukon River panel seek ways to create more meaningful and effective engagement. Decisions made by this panel directly impact us, yet many of these decisions are made behind closed doors. Our traditional knowledge must be incorporated into our discussions and decision-making, especially as the escapement goal is revised. We believe there is a strong disconnect between this body and the first people of the river, and we are eager to work with you to remedy this. That's it.
Anyone else want to say anything? No? Okay. I'll follow that up and say that we've had a discussion, and we would like to respectfully request that the panel have your April meeting on the Yukon River in Galena. We have our first chief of Loudon Tribal Council with us who lives in Galena, and he has said that his community would welcome this panel with open arms, It's a community that has the capacity to host a meeting like this, and I can assure you that the Yukon River Intertribal Fish Commission is willing to assist you with the logistics of making that happen. You know, I have been doing this with the Yukon River Intertribal Fish Commission for almost 4 years now, and I have to say that I am tired of bringing our people to you. It is expensive. It's costing $35,000 for 8 representatives to come to you today. And even when the meetings are in Fairbanks and Anchorage, it also costs us tens of thousands of dollars to participate in a public process. And it should not have to cost that much to participate in a process where decisions are directly impacting the people on this river. And so we're asking that you come to us. We can bring a lot of people into Galena. Charlie said he's willing to snow machine down to Galena. We can have effective participation if you come to our communities. It's much more difficult for us to come into large urban areas. And it might be uncomfortable because you might have to bunk up with one another in one of the bed and breakfasts in town, but it's uncomfortable for someone from rural Alaska to have to come into Anchorage or into Fairbanks, where they're not used to all the, the big city stuff. So I'm asking you to embrace being a little uncomfortable and coming out to one of our communities. Our communities are very kind and generous. They will feed you. They will share what little salmon and moose and caribou they have with you, and they will make sure that you are well taken care of. And I can assure you that I've had many meetings in our communities where I've had to have a bunch of AV equipment brought in and be able to record the meetings and have microphones and everything, and we can make that happen. I can work with you to make that happen. You have my word on that. So this group, they're all willing to come out to Galena. We're willing to help make sure that First Nations can get a plane ride out to Galena if they can get themselves to Fairbanks. And we'd love to see this start happening along the Yukon River, where Canadian origin Chinook salmon are actually swimming through and by. The last thing I want to say is that it's important, I think, to redistribute the wealth of this panel into our communities. When you bring a group of this size into one of our communities, it has a tremendous economic benefit for our communities. And there's federal money, there's state money, there's money coming into this panel funding this, and I want to see that start to go out into our communities who are being impacted by the decisions and who rely on this resource. And that's a small thing that you can do to help assist our communities who have to pay, what are you paying per gallon of milk? $18? $18 per gallon of milk. So that's a small way that this panel can show that you are willing to turn things on their head and do things differently and start creating a better way for us to engage with you. So thank you. Anyone else? That's it? Any questions?
Thank you very much. So questions from panel members? Go ahead, panel member James McDonald.
Yeah, thank you. I don't have a question so much as a comment. I guess I just encourage very, very deeply, wholeheartedly to see that you're taking the time to leave your homes, leave your families, come here, talk to us, address us in a way that we can understand and I hope appreciate. And I just want to acknowledge your effort and your sacrifices that you've made. And I, for one, am in full support of your request. I think it's a simple one, and I'm not sure what level of influence I have, but I can do what I can to kind of facilitate that conversation to take place in the space that you would like it to take place.
Panel member Rhonda Pick, go ahead.
I would also like to echo my support for this idea. I definitely think the time is right to increase our public engagement with local users. and also the tribal governments in Alaska. Thank you.
Further questions from panel members? Panel member Carl Sidney, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair, and thank you, Stephanie and Emmie. I had nothing to do with this, but you guys have heard me before stating that I would like this panel to meet in the communities. Right from the beginning of this, I think Ragnar was one of the members at the time. We had this meeting in Teslin. I think that was awesome. And there are other communities. We've had gatherings in Mountain Village with 200 people. It's possible, and I totally support that, and I second it. Thank you.
Any further questions from panel members? Not seeing any. Thank you very much for your testimony this morning, and obviously for your participation this week. We appreciate your words. Thank you. And so I'll try it a second time. I'd like to call Mr. Joseph O'Brien from Little Salmon Carmacks Renewable Resource Council. Is Mr. O'Brien, there he is. Welcome, Mr. O'Brien, and thank you for joining us today.
Masicho. Dank anata tegichohatan and Masicho, Alaska. I want to thank you, and I'm from the north. I'm northern Shoshone, and I want to welcome Alaska. And usually every 2 years, and we go up to Alaska, and we go to Juneau, and we sing and we dance there, and we join with our brothers and sisters there, many of us, and celebrate and remember the days when there was no border there. We have relatives on both sides there, and there's a young man there I'd like to acknowledge. His name is Sean Smith. You can stand up for a second. This young guy, I have the honor of dancing with, and we teach kids and passing on our knowledge, whatever we know, and that's our future. Now, I like it when Roger said that, and he pointed out to those young men over there. And that's the only way we're going to get somewhere, is we pass on whatever we can. And when I see the first people, that was in the back of my mind a long time ago. Why don't we have a First Nation summit? A long time ago, a lot of our chiefs and our elders headed into Alaska because they saw this happening even before it happened. I believe in the 70s, under the late Harry Allen, chairperson of then CYI, to talk with the chiefs there and made an agreement with the salmon. Because a long time ago, when we make agreements, First Nation, we usually make it around a fire, or we make it, and we keep it in here. We don't write it on a piece of paper and ask there. And it's passed on from next generation to next generation. It's kept. Now, my mom passed away 2 years ago, and I missed her out of the fish camp. And I asked her a question one day when we were out there before she passed on, saying, "Mom, what if the salmon stopped coming?" She turned around and looked at me right away. "What are you talking about?" And it looked like the tears started building up in her eye. She said, we would cease to exist as a people, because we are culturally, spiritually connected to them. That goes way, way, way back, before there was borders, before the colonialists came. And we were part of the ecosystem, and we held that balance on the land. Traditional knowledge that goes way, way, way back. Now I remember standing on one of these little rivers here with my grandma, and the river was just red. She'd come down, she'd take me by my hand, and she'd hold her hand up. Welcome back. Hey, and he, ah. She'd be singing. She'd be glad to welcome back the salmon. Now, years later, as I'm getting older now, I'm not getting any younger, I go back to the same river. I only see 1, 2 salmon coming up that river. What happened? Back then, along the river, and my grandma, she lived to about 98 years old, and some of the other elders said, "Oh, that's young." One of their main diets was salmon. Some of the other elders, they live into the hundreds. They have no records when they lived on the land. Now, she taught me a lot there. I remember her along going down to check the nets, and she'd be pulling it in. I'm saying, all these salmon are going by, Grandma. Why are you? Huh? She says, no. You think of the future. We can't take everything. We only take what we need. And you say a prayer. Now, salmon not only feeds us, but it feeds a bear, it feeds the eagle, and it feeds everything along that river. This river here, that goes all the way down and connects us to our brothers and sisters on the other side there that were separated by a border. What happens if we just say, let's remove that border? Could we just talk when we work on something as important as this? Has this have become a $1 million industry? Millions and millions of dollars later? The bureaucratic system has become so huge here, and yet I go back down to the same places, and yet I don't see any salmon. Our people are sacrificing and pulling in their nets. Our elders, they're sacrificing a lot because it's their main food. Now, when you look at everything from climate change, the temperature in the water. When I was working along the river and I see some salmon at the mouth of some of the spawning areas, the creek wouldn't go up. A slight change in the temperature of the water, or else pollution or anything, development up there, whether it's mining or anything else that comes down there, so they sense that. Then they wouldn't go up that river. Many other things there too. I go along the river and I see the changes that's happening. And this changes that's beyond our control. And yet I haven't been to the other side of the border to visit our brothers and sisters there to see what's happening in the ocean there. So we have to look at everything, and you add them all together, including traditional knowledge, which is science, our science, that goes way back when there was great mammoth that roamed this earth and that we used to hunt them, my people. Your science, our sacrifices. And you look at those children when it's being taught in the school, and we pass that on to them. They're going out, they're collecting the fries, they're going to the creek, and they're releasing them. And you can see that look in some of those kids' eyes. That's what it's all about. Them, the future. Not on this side, not on that side, both sides. So the work you're doing is not only of great importance. You know, some of you just come here and you just get tired of meetings. You have to start opening up and give it everything you got. You have to start, if you got kids at home, think of them. Because that's what it's all about. As my grandma said there, and my mom, we will cease to exist as a people if they disappear. Masicho.
Thank you very much, Mr. O'Brien. And any questions from panel members or comments? Panel member Carl Sidney, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair, and thank you, Joe. It was brought to my attention just before this public testimonies, but Angus is still here, and Steve and Zach, and on the proposal scoring criteria, there is a clause in there for technical merit, but there's nothing there indicating traditional knowledge. I don't know if you don't have to answer it right now, but there's points given for technical proposals and stuff, but there's nothing indicating traditional knowledge. Don't have to answer right now. And I know it's lunchtime. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sidney. And just a quick follow-up. So the panel did request the Joint Technical Committee to undertake work to demonstrate how better to incorporate traditional knowledge in their respective processes. So I do expect that at our next meeting we will receive a report out in regards to those efforts. So, but thank you for the reminder. It is an essential part of the work of this panel. So with that, we will adjourn for lunch. We're just after 12 o'clock, and we will resume at 1:15, and we'll start with a review of the 2019 Yukon River Panel's management recommendations, and then move into the postseason presentation. So 1:15, we'll resume, and thank you.